I'm pleased to introduce to you our third speaker of the day. Just let me open the right slide. Yeah. Yes, this is the one. Our third speaker is Sultan Somjee. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong presentation. Here it is. So, we moved from West Africa to East Africa, and now from East Africa, we are still in East Africa in the sense that the experience that Sultan Somjee is going to share with us is part of that environment, but he's now actually speaking to us from Vancouver in Canada. And Sultan Somjee is an ethnographer who founded the community peace museums in Kenya, and he worked on African indigenous values and peace traditions, material culture, and also training of community-based curators of the peace museums, such as Monuve, for example. He was the head of ethnography at the National Museums of Kenya from 1994 to the year 2000. He has published widely, and his latest book, One Who Dreams is Called a Prophet, captures at the same time his lifetime research on peace traditions in East Africa and his poetic storytelling quality. He curated several community participatory exhibitions, generating dialogues among ethnicities in conflict. And the United Nations named Sultan Somjee one of the 12 global unsung heroes of dialogue among civilizations, in recognition of his work to facilitate dialogue through museums of peace in regions of ethnic conflicts. So, Sultan, you are most welcome. You may share your screen, and just before as you make these arrangements, let me say something to connect your presentation to also what Monuve has shared with us. We have just heard from Monuve that he used some of the stories from your latest book to create a syllabus for peace education. And that builds on African storytelling traditions, making use of indigenous literary media such as proverbs, parables, riddles, poems, songs, and satire. And the stories actually pick up various themes and create a dialogue between peace traditions and social and environmental issues and situations which communities are experiencing at present. By reconnecting the participants with nature, material culture, beauty, life-giving relationships, and ancestral wisdoms, the stories evoke our humanity, our deepest sense of humanity. They heal our spiritual wounds and unveil our own contradictions and dilemmas, and give us the possibility of taking a distance from the mechanisms of violence and injustice. Now, Sultan is going to read some passages from his book. and he will highlight some of the themes of Africa peace traditions narrated in the story of Alama, the protagonist of his book, who is an elder of a pastoralist community who embarks on a journey in search for the source of peace during conflicts and unrest. So, Sultan, you are most welcome, and you may start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Brother Alberto. It's very good because now I can follow up on Munue Mutufse's presentation. Oh. Okay.
Sultan, can you maximize your presentation? So if you, exactly, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I acknowledge that I'm speaking from the unceded territories of the First Nations. I'm speaking from Vancouver. It's customary in Canada to start your public talk by acknowledging that we are actually on the unceded territories of the First Nation. Now, this is a gesture towards reconciliation, a very, very difficult reconciliations over so many generations of displaced people. Greetings, everybody. My name is Sultan Somjee, and today I'm going to read from my latest book. It's called The One Who Dreams is Called a Prophet. And this is actually a proverb from one of the northern pastoralist communities of Kenya and bordering on Ethiopia. I am here with a Pokot elder. I'm holding leaves of the peace tree and a peace staff that was gifted to me. This is a talking circle at the Community Peace Museum of the African Child Soldier in Magwi, South Sudan. He's a curator and the founder of the African Community Peace Museum, and he's called Lomoduk Okech. He himself was a child soldier, and now he has brought together other child soldiers from the community who participate in the museum. Atim Onen is giving a workshop or leading a talking circle of the child soldiers. And this is her creation, the chart, the drawing that you see here. And she talks about how violence breaks the body. And I was so stunned to see this picture. She gives in details how every part of your body gets broken by continuous violence. Atin, her name itself means born in the bush. 30 plus years ago, her mother, pregnant mother, was running away from violence in her village, and she delivered Atin by the roadside. And they say that after delivering, she had to continue walking and with the other refugees. And they called her Atin, the one who is born by the wayside. And and the violence still continues today in South Sudan, 30 more years ago. She uses the concept of Utu. Utu comes from the Swahili word mtu. Mtu is a human being. Now, if you are a human being, you must say Utu. Without Utu, you cannot be a Mtu. And but to have Utu, you need all these agencies as witnesses to who you are as a human. The Supreme Being, nature, ancestors, community elders. And I have lived among 16 different uh, cultural groups, and they all have this concept of Utu. And, and that's one of the connecting, let's say, features of African cultures, how they connect with the same concept, although they may be using different languages. For example, in South Africa, you have heard Archbishop Desmond Tutu talk about Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the same root as Utu. And a lot of African theologians, Christian theologians, have written on Ubuntu. And this concept is so connecting all over Africa. It's just amazing. These are child soldiers who are now adults sitting under a peace tree called Olwedo at the museum. Of course, they're adults now, but the trauma has not left them. And also they're also stigmatized by the community because they say they have killed, so they cannot fit into the Utu of this community, and they have to go through purification rites actually. And I'll just read from the book here. Where will I find shades of the peace tree? Asked Alama. The word for peace is the sovereign tree name, and peace is the fruit of the tree that is male and female, she replied, beginning a riddle. Her sentences carried a rhythm that spoke to the body. Alama wanted to listen more. Now Alama knew she had the wisdom of the ancestors who speak in riddles. The meanings of their words do not appear in straight talk, but through feelings in the body that question thoughts. These are pictures from a peace tree conference that we had. Maasai women have cut a branch of the peace tree, which now they are carrying in a procession and singing at the same time. And the participants then went down to a nearby peace museum, peace tree, and they said their prayers there, and everybody participated. There were like 10 to 12 different cultural communities at the conference, specifically on the peace tree. Each one brought their own peace tree from their own culture. Everybody participated. You see, this is a Muslim man here, but he also joined in the prayers, because this is like like the anchor of many of the communities in Kenya. The two of them made each other wiser with stories of how peace was given to mankind in ways of birds, animals, waters, mountains, trees, dawn and dusk, the nature's way. They felt it in their hearts that they should dream what was lost, so they could reclaim the nature's way of Utu, that they could then give it to their children so they may live in peace. My book is based on 10 staffs, walking sticks, ordinary walking sticks that I found among different cultural communities. And each story, each walking stick or peace staff tells a story, has a story to tell you. And so this picture is from a ceremony called coming home of the walking stick or the peace staff. 3,800 young men attended this ceremony, and they're all carrying the peace staff. And some of them have even tied the leaves of the peace tree here. From this day onwards, this is a Maasai community in the Rift Valley of Kenya. From this day onwards, they will drop their weapons and they will carry a peace staff. Now, this was as recent as December 2019. So these are the living cultures of Africa that we are trying to reclaim through the community peace museums and tell the stories. So there is a continuity. Musée Iraigua here is blessing a peace tree after a massacre, urban massacre in Kariobangi in Nairobi. And then we started a peace tree garden there with different peace trees. And when I visited this garden in 2009, the trees were also planted along the highway. And so there was an extension of this garden. And then I also saw them at Tangaza University College, where the peace trees were also planted. I will read from the book here. We, the Jua, now Jua is a culture group that I refer to in the book. We, the Jua, river beauty in colors of sky and earth. Beads pattern beauty on our bodies and speak to proclaim a silent parable, a proverb, or a riddle of peace. We say beauty is peace in our worship. We hold wisdom in our languages, in colors of our beads and dreams. We are all protected by the divine and spirits of our forefathers who own the land, who inhabit the shades of the peace trees. Now, you see, when you just see an ornament like that, you have to go into the languages, the parables, the metaphors that are used, let's say on colors. And here you see the zebra pattern. This is on the savannah of Kenya, and where lots of pastoralist cultural people are. And see, the zebra is reflected. The pattern is reflected here in the sky. And again, and they say, and there are songs about it, that the zebra is running on the sky. And then when a cloud uh, comes under the sun and it's moving, the shadow falls on the ground. And you see the shadow moving along the ground. And the Maasai say the zebra is galloping on the savannah. And then they celebrate, there's a pattern called the zebra, and they celebrate it on their ornaments. This is another ornament called leketio, and that Munube mentioned. And it's a peace belt, and it's not among this one particular group. These are the Pokot of Kenya, who are one of the 8 similar, linguistically similar groups, and they all have, or most of them have, leketio as a peace belt. Now, this belt protects the womb. It protects the fetus from dropping, and it's considered to be sacred, and it is very much respected. When a leketio is thrown between people who are fighting, they stop fighting. It's very well, it's a symbol of motherhood, let's say, and that is really respected. I found that among many of the cultural people, motherhood is respected, and all the symbols associated with the motherhood is respected, and in fact, calm is restored. if there are some groups who are arguing and the argument is hot and which may come to violence, people will start shouting, Lekitio, Lekitio, Lekitio. It's like calm down, calm down, calm down. And then people will start considering who they are. This is from 1994 conference that we had on material culture of Kenya. And here you see two different people. The Somali comes from over here, Somali men, and the Maasai woman comes from over here. In fact, there are two women, and they're both pastoralists. And the pastoralists use bells, but the bells are very different. And here, I was so intrigued to see this lady here, so interested in how the Somalis make and use the bells, because they also make and use the bells. And these are animal bells. And then, although they didn't speak each other's languages, they were talking. And they were talking about the bells here. How you use it, how we. So this became, uh, let's say, a piece around which a conversation could happen from very different parts of the country. Okay. Matumbo Hayashibi means Matumbo is stomachs. Hayashibi means cannot be satisfied, and it's generally a word that is used for despots and dictators and misrulers, and we have had many of those. and and so this is a little passage about them. My words are shadows of my thoughts. Listen, within a tribe, there lives another tribe disguised as one of them. They speak the same language and eat the same food, but they are ogres in human bodies. You cannot spot them if you do not know them. They live as a secret society and meet in hyena's den. Every tribe of Yeta, the imaginary country that I use, every tribe of Yeta has this secret group, and they are all kingsmen and women. They proudly call themselves Matumbo Hayashibi, meaning the insatiable stomachs. They live among different people, but they are one in their minds and bodies. So, under dictatorships and oppressive rules, what do we do, And yet we have such a rich tradition of living in peace. And in 1977, I worked on the community theater in a place called Kamiridu, which is like 70 miles out of Nairobi. And this was a community theater of peasants and workers. And they were cooperating with two distinguished writers, Ngugi wa Thiong'o and Ngugi wa Merie. And and they were basically building the theater, doing the costumes and acting out. They were acting out their history as they knew it, speaking to themselves and speaking to the authority. In 1994, then, I took the museum to the people. And even in conflict zones where there's a lot of military, we could still have exhibitions here, and this was under the directorship of Munume Mutisya. And you can see the elders here have come to listen and to see the material culture, and some of this would have them would go back and remember, kind of speaking. It speaks to the memories of the peace traditions they have lived, and the forefathers have given them. And they're sitting here with their staffs, walking sticks or the peace staffs. And then they're supervised by the military. And then we also had exhibitions. Uh, This is 1997, and this is a painting by Patrick Mugabe. And this is a particular painting of a Rendile people who are also pastoralists, and they use green beads during their reconciliation. They're considered to be color of peace, green. And you can see the elder here is holding leaves of the peace tree. He's also carrying a peace staff. This is the lamb to be sacrificed. And most importantly, the ceremony, the ritual is witnessed by the whole community. And it looks like the whole community is dancing, is engaged in a joyful dance of togetherness. And and then we write stories and publish in books like that one called Honey and Heifer. Sorry, oh, this is the next slide. And this book called uh, Honey and Heifer, Grasses, Milk and Water, a heritage of diversity in reconciliation. People from afar, I'm reading from the book, people from afar heard the sky mountain resonate the rhythm of Moja, Moja, Pamoja. Moja, Moja, one, one, Pamoja, all together. The rumbling music instilled movements into their bodies. Their hips swayed, their heads nodded, the knees bended and stretched, torsos took bows, and their arms circled. The harmony of bodies in dance soared to a horizon that in turn brought unsaid joy, like the village dance that embraced the community into one body of matched movements. We talk of Africa's resources and we think of minerals, gold, diamond, uranium, oil. But what about its cultural resources? While there's so much investment into exploiting or removing the material resources, the intangible resources of Africa is still to be tapped, touched actually. Africa is a continent of 100,000 proverbs, parables, and riddles told in 2,000 languages, and 1,000 more songs, stories, and dances. They speak of wisdom of how to live. The vessel that carries them is the memory of beauty. I am one such a memory of beauty, she says. The belt I wear over my unborn is called Leketio Katikati. Rivers, lakes, forests, groves, and mountains are beaded on my belt like proverbs, parables, and riddles on my tongue. The eye that sees and the tongue that speaks of Utu are in one calabash of language, of landscapes, of beauty and abundance. That is the peace I know. So, when grandmothers tell the legend of Alama's wanderings in quest of the source of peace, they say to the children, we believe one who dreams is called a prophet. So dream and find the path to peace for your people. Dream strong and be the prophets of tomorrow. Thank you very much. Asanteni.
Thank you very much, Sultan, for this very, very touching sharing and very poetic words that really awake within ourselves the spirit of peace. And as I give the participants 2 minutes to write your question, the questions addressed to you in particular, I would like to take this time to ask you one question. You have presented various elements of peace traditions you encountered among the peoples of Kenya. Are there ways to practice them systematically to build bridges and reconciliation, especially in a time of ethnic tensions and violent conflicts? What is your experience in this regard?
It's very difficult to enter a conflict because the emotions are very high. There's this kind of a madness in the air that you cannot infiltrate, that you cannot get people to make sense. But what we do is we look at some symbols. We bring concrete symbols, as we did at Kariobangi after the massacre. And usually we don't go into the conflict at the time, but usually after the conflict when it can still continue. And so after the massacre in Kariobangi in 2001, this Kariobangi is an undercity, let's say a slum city near out of Nairobi, and there the two conflicting cultural groups, we use their peace trees, one from each, or in fact there are a number of trees actually, but from each of the, and they exchange their peace trees. And they said, okay, I'm going to plant this in my homestead. Although it comes from my enemy, I'm still going to plant it in my home. They were so touched because they told stories. And then we brought storytellers from some old men from the time of Mau Mau. This was in 1950s when there was a rebellion against the British, almost a revolution, very violent. And they told the stories of their time. So what we do is we speak to the symbols that they've inherited from nature, like the peace trees, even the peace animals, and the peace staff. Each can bring their own and speak about it. They just speak about it. So it's like speaking to their memories of what we were. And what we were before is what we want to be now. So that's a message that we try to give. So, Brother Alberto, what we do is we look at concrete things and then we work on a concrete parable or a proverb. Like, what does it mean? One who dreams is called a prophet, or where there is no beauty, there is no peace. And each one translates that in his own mother tongue. And when they translate into each their own mother tongue, it sits in them, it goes into their body, and they understand it. And then they can perform, they can make a dance. It's very important that they sing. And like the Maasai say, to sing is to dance. In fact, the word for rainy in Maasai, to sing is also to dance. So the bodily, where the mind does not work, and what ideas do you have you to talk about that it can make sense to them, because my training would be just in the Western academia, and it doesn't make sense to them. Really, it's fine for me to sit in a conference at a university or a five-star hotel and talk about making peace. But when you go into the community, what language do you use? First of all, the language of the people, and then also what language means, what metaphors, what terminology, how do you speak in the people. And it's very often bodily, spoken bodily. Your like singing, like giving a proverb, like going around riddles. And that's why in my book, the protagonist Alama is very confused by they're always talking about riddles and proverbs and metaphors. But what is peace? What is peace? That's what my Western colleagues would say, but how do they see peace? How do they see peace? You ask Mzee, an old man, uh, he will he will give you a story. He will give you a proverb. He will give you a riddle. He will ask you to solve it yourself. He will ask you to talk to your body. That is, talk to the Utu in you. The Utu in you is your humanity. And what wisdom have you inherited through your language? And then if I were to write my exam in a Western academy, I would fail because the the teacher would say, but you are going around and round, but you're not coming to the point. But this is how the milieu, how the conversation is, and we have to be patient. We have to relearn actually, and see how the people talk. Brother Alberto, does it explain? In my
Yes.
book, to explain that, I use the peace staff. I use a walking stick. Now, walking stick is so ubiquitous. You see them all over Africa. It's so simple. But have you ever thought the story behind each of the elders' walking stick? Something so simple. I don't go into something complicated like a Maasai bead ornaments. No, just a walking stick. And what can you learn from a walking stick? And most of these walking sticks are made from the peace trees. Brother
Thank
Alberto,
you.
do I answer your
Very,
question?
very well. Thank you. Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.